What happened to Tasia Fortune? Now, was this self transitioning or was this foul play? To me, there are two sides to every coin, so let's get into it. Welcome back to Headlines in Motion. I'm your host, Brittany Monet, where we talk all things factual and in real time. Now, this case with Tasia Fortune is something that is very disturbing because she was found in Jackson, Mississippi, behind an abandoned home, hanging from a tree. Now, everyone is definitely calling this suspicious. And hey, if I'm found hanging from a tree, yes, investigate. And then we have a city councilman, Kenneth Stokes, who also reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he is also asking for additional support so that they can investigate this. Jackson is investigating this. They're looking into it. The autopsy has not been released. I think it's been conducted, but it has not been released to the public or the family, okay? Now, when I was looking into this story, the thought came to me of self-transitioning and foul play. Because as we know in the Black community, anything that has to do with mental health and self-transitioning was very taboo. It still kind of is taboo. We more so embrace mental health now, but we haven't embraced what actually takes place in someone who does go through with self-transitioning. That's something that we don't speak about in the Black community. So when situations like this arise, we definitely ignore it and say that could never have happened. That can't have happened to this person. But I think that's something, especially as more cases come out, that we must discuss. Now, I did see a report that was done and reported by the Griot. It was conducted in February of 2026 by Julian, and it published that over 70 modern day lynching cases had happened and taken place across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. And it did list out all 70. It listed out the circumstances around those cases. And it was very interesting because in almost all of them, I didn't read all 70, but I read a great portion of them. The family was like, there's no way that this could be any type of self-transitioning. They would never. There's no way. This has to be foul play. And that's what struck a chord with me, right? I'm not denying that Tasia Fortune, her circumstance could be foul play. I'm not denying that. And I don't ever want that to be misconstrued. What I want to sit with and really unpack and understand is that as a Black community, we can't make it be so taboo to assume that no one who's Black is going to self-transition. That's just not true, right? So I'm trying to isolate from Tasia to really understand the what do I want to say, guys? The idea that it just can't happen to a Black person, like a Black person will not do this, right? Because that is very harmful if we are serious about mental health. If we are so serious about mental health, then we have to understand that that is sometimes a part of someone having poor mental health. Until we understand that, then we won't understand why people do it or how to help them if they want to do it. They're not going to say it. They're going to, keep it a secret and keep it under wraps. And it's not going to be something where we can kind of get ahead of it and help our people. So I definitely want to sit with that, because what I see a lot of times is that when these mysterious and weird, sketchy things happen to someone, especially in Black families, it's immediately, they would never. How do you know they would never? If you have this feeling about, and this negative thing about that makes you whatever, it can make you too crazy. It could make you, you need to be on medication. You need to be, in someone's psych ward, whatever. If you have that idea about unaliving yourself, then of course, no one is going to go to you and say, hey, I'm having these thoughts and I need help. because you're going to immediately write them off. You understand what I'm saying? And when you talk about it in that way in the home, no, they're not going to come to you. It's almost, to me, a little bit, I'll kind of compare it to when you have, a gay child in your family. They're not going to come to you and say, hey, I'm gay. They're going to be weird in the closet because maybe they've heard the conversations. They heard how you talk about other people. So no, they're not going to feel like, well, if I come out and try to say this, I'm not going to be embraced. I'm not going to feel the same kind of love. So let me stay in the closet, right? Until I can be who I want to be on my own terms. You understand? So I think that's kind of where we are with this unaliving and this self-harm, is acting as if it does not happen until it happens. And that's a dangerous place to be in. We have to change our mindset and understand that it does not matter what your skin color is. Mental health is mental health. The brain is going to do what the brain wants to do. And sometimes our brain is very tricky. Our brain is just, it's just a complex thing. So we have to understand that not everything is going to be foul play. Sometimes this is a mental health thing. And sometimes if we are honest with ourselves and we sit and we think, where was this person in their life? What was happening in their life? What behaviors were they displaying? How were things going? Was I having conversations with them about their mental health? What could I have done to, learn more about them and understand them? Really sit with that before you just jump out and say, no, it's foul play. Because maybe that person just lost their job, just, had their heart broken. Maybe they could have just been experiencing a lot of different traumas. And because you assume it's not a Black people thing, all of a sudden it's suspicious. And that's just dangerous to me, because I feel like we're going to keep assuming that things are always foul play when we really need to be discussing in a real way mental health and Black people unaliving themselves. Again, this is isolated from Tasia. It was just in reading every single blurb about these people who had, died in these same hanging situations. Every single one was like a reference to like, they would never, this is a lynching, they would never, this is foul play, they would never. And it's like, out of all 70, somebody would have. We can't say all 70 were just strictly lynchings. Now, I understand that is probably something that a lot of people are going to disagree with. I get it. I totally understand why you would want to disagree with it. I'm not above understanding that. And I also understand our history, but I'm not going to isolate it and say that, hey, let's completely ignore that this could be self-transitioning, because it quite literally could be. And it does happen. And that is something that is heavy. It's hard to sit with. You don't want to believe it. You want to believe that we're so strong and we can get through everything. And, if you even think about it, you're weak. And that's really not true. It's your brain. Your brain is doing these things and it's tricking you and making you believe certain things. And, it's that part that we aren't discussing. And until we're able to comfortably and confidently talk about that, then we'll be able to say, no, I'm 100% certain that this is foul play, because we have had those talks. We have been open. We have discussed this, and even then, right, you still can't make someone not do something they want to do, but it is something that should be discussed. Now, in my lifetime personally, from high school all the way up until I want to say 2021, I've just, throughout my life, there have been different people who have self-transitioned. Okay. My first one, it was 2007, and I was in high school, and it was a girl who I was, mind you, this was something that was brand new to me. Like, you hear about it maybe through like a movie or like a TV show, but it wasn't something that felt real to me in my life, right? And this was someone who I like sat next to in class. This was my girl, right? Like, I was close with her. And when the news, spread and everything, everyone knew, I didn't know how to sit with that because I don't know. I just assumed that you would see it, right? Like you would see that this is what this person is dealing with. These are the thoughts in that person's head. Like I can see it, I can recognize it, and I can do something, but that's not always true. And I think until you really experience it, you won't know that it is hidden. Like it's hidden, especially if people want to hide it. And that's why I don't encourage people. I will say this. I don't encourage people to play around with that, to just throw that out there and things like that, because that's a real thing that people battle with and do and try to do. So please don't play around with, no, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even let the words of like, I just don't, like, no, because I understand that like the signs may not be there. They just genuinely may not be. There was someone who, when I was in college, and I met when I was in college, great guy, great guy. I was in Brooklyn, New York, and I think I met him around 2011, and I believe I want to say before 2015. I had heard, because of course, you're on Facebook and things like that, and he had went to the top of a building in Brooklyn and just jumped, like that was it. You know what I mean? So, and he was a Black man. So I definitely want people to understand that this is something that does happen every single time. It's not going to be foul play. Now, again, I'm not going to go into every story, but I'm just trying to have you sit with it, that until you understand that it's not going to be seen, right? Both these people, they were fun, they were bubbly, they were laughing. Like it was just they just felt like such positive people. And to me, all of that could be a mask. And because you say they would never, they were so happy, they laughed, we had fun, they wanted to do this in their life, they wanted to be that, does not mean they don't have those thoughts. So for us, as I always say, for us to get better as a community, we have to understand that we have to rip off that belief, right? That this is some taboo thing that we don't do, and sit with it and understand that no, we do. And we have to make that not be this crazy stigma of, if you even think about it, something is wrong with you. Like, yeah, something is wrong, but like, help me, embrace me. Don't write it off and just be flippant about it. Like, oh, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't take place. We don't do that type of stuff. That's white people shit. No, that's not okay. That is not okay. Okay. So when things do happen, yes, I understand the outrage and wanting to label every single case a lynching. I get it. I understand it. Trust me, I do. And there may be some cases where there was foul play, but not every single time. And to disregard it as if it could never happen is just wrong to me. I'm sorry. It's just flat out wrong to me. For every time you read it to be like, nothing was wrong, it's not true. And as I'm like, of course, right? We're reading comments, we're listening to different people, and it's like, it's still this notion of Black people don't do that. And that's just unfair to me, because then it feels like if you are struggling as a Black person, well, there's nowhere for you to go. There's nowhere for you to go because there's this notion that, oh, Black people don't do that. That's foul play because Black people don't do that. No, that's not right. We need to really embrace and really understand that it might have been. And the same way that you want, police to investigate and you want people to look into this and to see what could have happened, is the same way you need to do it about them. Look at their social media posts. Did they have a diary? What were things that they were writing? What were things that they were looking into? Like, you need to also explore that, because you may be surprised. You may be surprised. It's a lot happening in this world, especially around, remember COVID? Like, everyone was dealing with some form of mental health crisis because they, locked away. You're not seeing people. You're not being able to be in community with people, touch people, feel people. Like you were by yourself. And that drove a lot of people crazy. A lot of people also self-transitioned through that time, because it was a lot to deal with. White, black, brown, purple, yellow, it didn't matter. They were dealing with mental health. So if we understand that, then we might be able to prevent one or two people, right? I'm not saying that it may not be happening. Tasia's circumstance may 100% be foul play. 100% it could be foul play and it's suspicious and they need to figure out who did that. 100%. But as a total, let's just look at mental health. Let's just take the time to understand that this is something that happens in our community. That's all I want. I'm isolating it from that because I can already see the comments, child. And I know y'all going to chew me up. I understand. But I'm isolating it from that to just focus on, like I said, as I'm reading these blurbs from the families saying one after another, this could never happen. I'm like, why are you so confident this could never happen? I don't understand. And I know people will say, well, one is proven to be more of our history. I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I also believe there are two sides to the coin. And if one is true, then so can the other. So if one can be foul play, then the other can also be self-transitioning. We can't just totally disregard something because of the color of our skin and we say we don't do that. Because there's a whole bunch of people in our community who have those thoughts. And if we are very dismissive of it, then those numbers are going to increase and and you might see more, and not even knowing, right? But like overdoses or people, getting into really risky behavior because, well, I can't self-transition because Black people don't do that. So I'm going to give up on life and I'm going to just, do drugs, live on Kensington, go to Skid Row, like whatever happens to me. And that's just a depressing life because you feel depressed because people have told you your whole life that Black people don't do that. And when you hear stories like Taisa Fortune's and you hear how dismissive people are of the idea that Black people can self-transition, then it makes it worse because you don't want to put out your hand and say, help me. Help me because you're saying Black people don't do that, but I'm having that thought. But you're dismissive of it. No, we have got to embrace people, embrace the idea, understand the idea. The way we're trying, I should say, to understand mental health and what that means and what that looks like and how to have a better mental health is the same way we have to understand self-transitioning. I hope I have articulated that the best way I can because I'm not trying to diminish the idea that there is some sort of foul play and people could be using lynchings as a way to unalive someone. I'm sympathetic to that. I understand that. But again, this is how my mind works, right? When I'm reading certain things, different parts of it stick out to me, right? That might not stick out to other people. And I just sit down and I want to talk to my people, okay? That's it. And that's all. All right. So please don't get in the comments talking crazy. Let's keep on to the topic, right? Let's keep on with the topic. Please don't get in my comments talking crazy. I swear. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Headlines in Motion. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Absolutely. And if you want to go a step further, share this with a friend of a friend of a friend and tell them to come and subscribe and catch up and get into this content so we can have a bigger family over here at Black and Classic. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.